Why, hello there, my friends. So, I had a introduction for this, like filmed and already done, but I recently decided that I don't like it. So, I'm gonna do different introduction. Um, so I'm gonna be reviewing stuff, mostly books, but sometimes I'm gonna do games because no one can tell me not to. So there you go. Um, so to start off, I figured I'd just talk about stuff that I like with books. So, the kind of books that I usually like, I don't really have a kind of book that I usually like. I lean more towards fantasy, like that's what I write. But in terms of reading it, if it's a good book, I'll probably like it. But I mean that's not entirely true. There was a book that I read that or didn't read that I didn't entirely like, but I mean it was well written. The subject matter just wasn't for me, I suppose. Only two books that I've ever not finished and put on the list because I felt like talking about them. Um, I mean, this book is Christian fiction, and this book is about Asia, and this book is a fantasy book. So there's really no rhyme or reason to the books that I choose. If the cover looks cool, I'm gonna read it. I don't actually know how I ended up with Cities of Refuge. I don't know how that got in my recommended, but it was there and I read it and I like it. So there you go. Christian fiction is kind of a loose term for that book. It's sort of before like all what happened. I'll get there when I talk about it. Um and then like there's really no type of cover that'll draw me to a book either cuz I mean like this one's got a fan on it. This one has that on it. And then the Cities of Refuge book 2 has a lady on it just standing there. So, um, the kind of thing that does annoy me though lately is that since Game of Thrones ended, there's like on Facebook, because I read books and the internet knows me, so it recommends books to me. The pictures that they choose for these posts are ridiculous. There was a book that I clicked on, the post had a picture of like this fantasy like white lady on it. The cover of the book has a black girl on it. So I don't know how that happened. Speaking of black girls, uh if the book has melanin in it, I'm probably going to pick it up even if it's terrible. I'm at least going to give it a shot and like read the description on the back. If it's about Asian people, I'm going to read the description on the back. If it's about somebody who isn't your typical protagonist, I'm going to pick it up and look at it. There's a book on the list that is Steampunk Japan. That's purely the only reason that I picked that book. Um, and I read lots of my books on Kindle, so like I don't own most of these books. Well, like I do own them, but I don't physically own a lot of these books. I still like physical books. I don't think they're ever gonna die out. People said that when the vacuum came out, that brooms were gonna disappear. They haven't. People also said that when like I'm not sure what it was with newspapers, but people have been saying that newspapers are gonna disappear for like forever now. My school prints newspapers, so and there's no online version of that. Um, since I like fantasy, I figure I talk about one of the fantasy tropes that I hate a whole lot, and it's bland reactions to sudden fantasy. And what I mean by that is like, so you are a typical high school male or female or somewhere in between, and you think you're human, and you have no reference for fairies or dragons or any of that except what you've seen in like books and movies. So then when all of the magical stuff starts happening, it really gets on my nerves when they have zero reaction to it and they're just like, okay, what are we doing next? And it's like, no, dragons exist, vampires are a thing. Maybe you should have a bigger reaction to this. Like, there's one book where the only reason I let it slide is because she's been dealing with this since she was 7. And even though she thinks that's just her, it's a little supernatural, so it bothers me less. Um, when normal life isn't established, and what I mean to say by that about that is books that have the which one is that? Hero's Journey format of reading. when the normal is not established, I get really annoyed. There's one book where all we pretty much get is that she's depressed and is on medication. We don't learn about her life. We don't learn about what, like, I'm not really sure what that protagonist's motivation was. Like, she doesn't seem to want to go home. She doesn't really seem to want to stay either. It's never explicitly said. And then at the end, she just goes home. And it's like, well, I mean, you can't just go home now. You know about this whole thing. You're kind of a princess now. You can't just go home. But she does. Okay. Um, and on that subject, bland protagonist. I don't care if it's a male or a female. I don't care if the author is male or female. It really gets on my nerves when protagonists are bland. Like, I just, like with the story that I just mentioned, she takes medication and that's about it. There's another story where she's supposed to be a femme fatale, and I feel like she does not affect that plot whatsoever. Everything is happening to her. She is doing nothing. Man. And then sometimes I'm going to talk about video games. I'm not sure if those are going to be entirely reviews. They might just be more of like if I like the video game or not, which is also kind of what the books are for, but the books are also reviews. Like I'm going to be telling you like if they're good or not. I read a lot of books, so I mean, it's not my job, but just feel like like everybody always talks about the same books all the time. So, yeah. Um it's kind of it. Um I found a list the other day of 25 books that you never finish reading, and the caption said, Fear people who finish these books for fun. And one of the books on the list was The Scarlet Letter. I read The Scarlet Letter probably when I was too young to understand it, but I read that book for fun and I liked it. I mean, I guess that shows the type of person that I am. Tale of Two Cities was on that book too, and my grandfather bought me that book so that I could get a manga. So, I think he wanted me to read it for fun, but I had it for like 3 years and didn't read it till I got to high school. And my teacher told me that my grandfather has good taste, and it's just like, I mean, okay, I, I remember liking Tale of Two Cities, but it got a little bogged down in the middle. I don't care about the French Revolution. That is not my area of study. I mean, but yeah, from Harry Potter all the way down to the Scarlet Letter, I will probably read it all. Probably. I mean, at this point, all it really takes is for Facebook or Tumblr or something to recommend a book to me, and I'll at least give it a chance and click on it if I think the cover looks cool. Yeah.